Welcome back to Our Time Stories. Yesterday we remembered when love letters meant everything. Today let me tell you about the neighborhood where everyone watched out for everyone else. Maple Street looked like any other street in 1960s America. Neat lawns, white picket fences, and kids' bicycles scattered on sidewalks. But what made our street special wasn't what you could see, it was what you could feel. It was the invisible web of caring that connected every house, every family, every life. Mrs. Henderson lived in the blue house on the corner. Every morning at 7:30 sharp, she'd appear on her front porch with a cup of coffee, watching as the neighborhood children walked to school. She knew every child's name, which ones forgot their lunch money, and who might need an extra sweater on chilly days. If little Susie Miller looked sad, Mrs. Henderson would call out, "Everything all right, sweetheart?" And somehow just knowing someone cared enough to ask made whatever was wrong feel a little better. She was our neighborhood guardian angel, and we didn't even know we needed one. The Johnsons lived across the street from us. Mr. Johnson worked at the factory, but his real passion was his vegetable garden. Every summer he'd grow more tomatoes and cucumbers than any family could possibly eat. But that was the point. He'd send his son Billy around the neighborhood with baskets of fresh vegetables for anyone who wanted them. "Tell your mother these are the last of the good tomatoes," he'd say, though somehow there were always more good tomatoes the next week. It wasn't really about the vegetables. It was about having a reason to check on folks, to make sure everyone was doing okay. Then there was the winter when the Kowalski family hit hard times. Mr. Kowalski had been laid off from his job just before Christmas, and Mrs. Kowalski was too proud to accept charity. But pride was no match for neighborhood ingenuity. Mrs. Peterson organized what she called a cookie exchange. Every family would bake extra cookies and trade them with other families. Somehow the Kowalskis always ended up with the biggest share. "Your sugar cookies are just so popular," Mrs. Peterson would say with a straight face, handing over another full tin. Food would appear on the doorstep with notes like, "Made too much soup. Thought you might enjoy some." Anonymous bags of groceries would show up with "From your Secret Santa" attached. Mr. Johnson suddenly needed help with odd jobs around his house. Jobs that paid exactly what Mr. Kowalski needed to keep the lights on. The beauty of it was that everyone pretended it wasn't charity, it was just neighbors being neighborly, friends helping friends. And when Mr. Kowalski found work again in the spring, he was the first to help the next family who needed it. Summer evenings were magical on Maple Street. As the sun began to set, families would drift outside, kids would play kick the can or hide and seek, while parents sat on porches calling out conversations from house to house. Someone always had a pitcher of lemonade to share, and there was always room for one more chair in the circle. We'd talk about everything and nothing, the weather, the kids, Mrs. Chan's award-winning roses, whether the Dodgers had a chance this year, but really, we were doing something more important. We were weaving the fabric of community, one conversation at a time. Dr. Martinez lived 2 houses down from us. He was officially retired, but somehow he never stopped being our doctor. If someone had a fever in the middle of the night, they'd call Dr. Martinez. If old Mr. Murphy fell off his ladder cleaning gutters, Dr. Martinez was there before the ambulance arrived. I may be retired, he'd say, but I'm not dead, and as long as I'm breathing, I'm looking after this neighborhood. He never charged a penny for these house calls. He said being part of our community was payment enough. When teenagers started hanging around the corner store causing trouble, we didn't call the police. We called Mrs. Washington. She had raised 5 boys of her own and had a way with young people that was part stern teacher, part loving grandmother. She'd march down to that corner store and have a conversation with those boys. Nobody knew exactly what she said, but within a week, those same teenagers were helping elderly neighbors with their groceries and mowing lawns for free. They just needed someone to believe in them, she'd explain with a smile. The sad truth is that Maple Street, as we knew it, started to disappear in the 1970s. Air conditioning meant people stayed inside more. Television meant less porch sitting and conversation. Families moved more often, chasing better jobs in distant cities. Mrs. Henderson passed away, and no one took her place on the corner porch. The Johnsons moved to Florida, and their vegetable garden became just another lawn. Young families moved in, but they were busy with 2 careers and organized activities. They were good people, just living different lives. I drive through that neighborhood sometimes, and it still looks beautiful. The houses are well maintained, lawns are perfect, and children still play in the yards. But something invisible is missing. That web of caring, that sense that everyone was looking out for everyone else. Maybe it's not gone forever. Maybe in small towns and close-knit communities, neighbors still watch out for each other the way we did on Maple Street. Maybe we just have to work a little harder to create those connections in a world that seems designed to keep us apart. But I believe it's worth the effort because there's something magical about knowing that when you step outside your door, you're not just walking into a collection of houses, you're walking into a neighborhood where everyone knows your name, where someone would notice if you weren't okay, where help comes without being asked and kindness comes without being earned. That's what we had on Maple Street. That's what I wish every child could grow up with and every adult could come home to. In our time, we didn't call it community building or social networking. We just called it being neighbors. That's today's story from our time. Tomorrow we'll remember when Grandma's kitchen was the heart of the home. What's your neighborhood story? Share it in the comments below. Every community has its own Maple Street memories.